stuff that happened to Daniel in his younger life. So I don't usually do that, but Daniel was born in 1970 in Townsend, Massachusetts. And from what we know of his childhood, it was a pretty dramatic one. There's not a lot of details, but what I could uncover seemed absolutely terrible. Daniel suffered a lot of abuse, both sexual and psychological, at the hands of multiple adults in his life. His father was the first individual who administered the majority of Daniel's punishments, allegedly tormenting him physically, emotionally, and sexually on a regular basis. Daniel's troubled upbringing affected every single aspect of his life. He struggled with school, both academically and socially. In addition to being diagnosed with dyslexia at an early age, he made very few friends throughout his school days, with most of his classmates at North Middlesex High School referring to him as creepy or weird. In his early teenage years, Daniel was referred by school officials to a psychiatrist due to his abnormal behavior and general reluctance towards his appearance, hygiene, and self-improvement. This particular incident really could have been a turning point in young Daniel's life, if not for the terrible circumstances which arose from it. It was here that Daniel was diagnosed with hyperactivity disorder, something with, it really didn't mesh with his already deteriorating mental state as a result of his troubled home and school life. His relationship with the psychiatrist eventually took a dark turn when the psychiatrist made sexual advances towards Daniel. And then, for the following year, this psychiatrist abused him during his sessions, which no doubt left a lasting impact on Daniel's psyche. Like his father before him, this was a gentleman who was trusted to care for Daniel, but instead added yet another layer of grief to his already painful existence. In his early teenage years, Daniel established himself as a small-time thief. He spent his evenings breaking into people's properties in the Townsend area to steal their valuables. As his burglary skills increased, so did his desire for torment. By age 15, he was breaking into people's houses, not only to take their possessions, but to leave items behind in his wake. He would move items around in people's homes in such a way that it was clear someone had entered their property, but not so much so that it was immediately obvious. Eventually, he was just invading people's home purely for the purposes of playing mind games with the owners of the houses, which absolutely creeps me out. In 1986, Daniel set in motion the series of events for which he would be forever known for. He obtained the phone number of a family in the local area. It is likely that he burgled this house at some point and somehow retrieved this phone number, although this is unconfirmed. This house belongs to a family of 3, a father and his 2 daughters. The daughters' names have been changed many times over the years. I don't know what they are, but we're going to call them Tina, age 15, and Karen, age 9. They began to converse with opposite of what he said he was. Instead of this athletic, jock-type boy she was expecting, her blind date was disheveled, greasy, dark-haired boy with no attractive features whatsoever. Regardless, Dina wanted to give the boy she'd been talking to a chance, so she let him take her to the local fair. But after just over an hour together, Dina made her excuses, and she returned home. It was during this date that Daniel discovered that Dina and Karen had recently lost their mother to cancer, leaving only their father to care for them. Daniel allegedly took great interest in regarding the details of Dina's mother's death, much more so than simple curiosity allowed for. Dina later claimed it seemed as though Daniel was obsessed with the death of her mother, continually questioning her on how she felt at the moment she died and how much she had suffered. Dina did not willingly see Daniel again following their date. However, she would later discover him again under circumstances which almost seemed to defy explanation. One evening, Dina and her sister decided that they were going to attempt to contact their deceased mother by performing a seance in their basement. They performed this out of teenage nativity, not really expecting anything to come from it. Nativity. I think I spelled that wrong and then said it wrong. Y'all know me. However, the same evening, Karen and Tina received this rhythmic knocking on their bedroom walls as they slept. Amazingly to the girls, it appeared like their seance was successful. In the dead of night, the two girls spoke to the unseen force as though they were talking to their mother one more time. They asked the spirit questions, to which it replied via knocks against the wall. It seemed that these girls had truly uncovered a supernatural force at work. Now, side note, some people love it when I do this, some people hate it. Having lost my own father, I would give anything to speak to him one more time. But I'm telling you, if my walls start knocking back, your girl is out. I fully believe in the paranormal, y'all know that. I'm out. Okay. So, this continued for several evenings until the knocking became so regular that it actually disturbed the girls' sleep. And over time, objects in their house began to disappear. Items that were laid on the table one day would find themselves strewn across the floor the next. The girls would come home and they would find that furniture had been moved from one side of the room to the other side of the room. And eventually it got so extreme that Karen and Tina believed that they were being haunted by a malevolent demon. Not the spirit of their mother like they originally believed. And y'all know you don't want to mess with that stuff. Don't mess with the Ouija boards. Don't invite something into your home. If you believe it, you understand what I'm saying. So the girls' father, Frank, fully believed that it was the girls themselves causing this havoc in their home. They claimed to him that they believed that they had unknowingly allowed a vengeful ghost into their home. But Frank just absolutely refused to believe that such absurdity could be real. Instead, he highlighted the fact that his daughters were emotionally struggling with the death of their mother, as noises were not coming from the walls, but from the basement. Armed with a kitchen knife, these two girls warily make their way towards the source of the noise. I can just see my sister and I, like, creeping down. So, as they crept down below their house, they were greeted with an ominous sight. Written in blood red on the basement wall was the message: "I'm in your room. Come and find me." The two girls fled the house without hesitation, and they called upon the assistance of their neighbor. They waited for their father to return home and told him what they had discovered. Frank, once again believing that it was his daughters that were the cause of all this, they were responsible for the defacement of the basement walls, ordered Tina and Karen to undergo counseling to help them cope with what he believed was their unraveling mental state. They're struggling this grief of losing their mother. Several weeks later, a similar incident played out, but with even more bizarre results. Again, the two girls heard knocking sounds, but this time, they came from behind Tina's bedroom wall. And when the two girls entered, again they were greeted with a message written in red on the wall: "I'm back. Find me if you can." The aftermath played out the same as before, with Frank placing the blame solely on Karen and Tina. The girls had called him from the neighbor's house to come home, and when he did, marched straight into his home to prove that there was no one else inside. However, when Frank entered the house, he noticed there had been further disarray than what his neighbor and the girls had previously claimed. It became apparent then that someone had been inside the house when Frank, the girls, and their neighbor were all somewhere else. So Frank enters Tina's room alone, and there an additional message had been painted on her wall. It read, "Marry me." Then on the other side of the room, Frank was greeted with an even more unnatural sight. A young boy stood, dressed in the clothing of Frank's deceased wife. He was wearing her makeup, a dress, and a blonde wig. And in one of his hands was a hatchet. This boy was, you guessed it, Danny LaPlante. A struggle ensued, but Daniel was able to get the jump on Frank and escape. Frank recalls being, really dumbfounded in the way that Daniel just seemingly disappeared from sight without much of an effort. And when the police were called in to investigate later that same night, it became clear why Daniel was able to vanish so suddenly. After discovering that each message was written in ketchup on the walls, the local police searched the house for clues on how Daniel may have gotten access to the house in the first place. One officer found a hidden crawl space behind a cupboard which was built into the wall of Tina's bedroom. And when he opened the hatch, he discovered Danny LaPlante curled up inside. Officers removed Daniel from the crawl space and placed him under arrest. Once Daniel had been removed from the scene, officers conducted a thorough search of the residence. To their horror, they discovered that Daniel had been living inside the walls of their home. The passageway which they had discovered him in had been tunneled around to other areas of the Bowen house. There were a handful of peepholes dotted around so Daniel could observe Tina in whatever room she was in. It became clear that Danny LaPlante likely the latter. The fact that he was wielding a hatchet at the time also suggests that Tina and Karen made a lucky escape that night. So I know what you're thinking, Shannon. Wait, there's no crime here, really. Danny did get arrested, but he didn't actually stay in jail. On December 1st, 1987, he broke into the Gustafson family home, around a half a mile from his own family's residence. And there he was greeted by pregnant Priscilla Gustafson, age 33, and her 2 young children, Abigail and William. Priscilla's husband, Andrew, was at work when Daniel invaded their home. And upon returning, Andrew was met with the most harrowing sight of his life. Andrew discovered Priscilla laying face down on their bed, her pillows dyed red with blood. She had been assaulted by Daniel LaPlante and shot multiple times at point-blank range. Andrew called the police, who then discovered the bodies of Andrew's 2 children in different bathtubs in the house. I'm not going to describe what he did to them. You can make your own assumptions. Daniel's exact modus operandi, however you say that. Hey, I'm trying to get fancy. In this murder remains unknown, given that Daniel's actions progress rapidly from burglary to full-scale assault and murder. When he was in the possession of a weapon suggests that he didn't possess the confidence or physical strength to subdue his victims by hand. In addition, a handful of items which double as restraints were found in the Gustafson household. And this prompts the theory that Daniel forced his way into the home and held his victims at gunpoint while he restrained them. He likely killed Priscilla first to remove the biggest threat, and then harmed the children one by one. It did not take long for authorities to connect the Gustafson family murder with Danny. Police sought to apprehend him, but found that he had fled. A manhunt quickly ensued. Daniel was considered to be armed and incredibly dangerous. Given Daniel's history, there was no telling what lengths he might go to avoid detection. A few towns over from Townsend, Daniel broke into a woman's home and kidnapped her in her own vehicle. The woman escaped, but Daniel was spotted by someone who'd seen his photograph on the news. Daniel LaPlante was discovered hiding in a dumpster 48 hours after the manhunt for him began. And when he was inspected, a hair belonging to Abigail was discovered on his sock, cementing Daniel's involvement in her murder. 1 year later, Daniel LaPlante was sentenced to 3 life sentences for the murder of the Gustafson family. Since his incarceration, he has shown little remorse for his actions. While clearly suffering from a multitude of personality disorders, Daniel continues to show that he is a pretty broken man. From the years 1988, I almost said 18, to 2014, he attempted to sue the courts multiple times for violation of his rights. In one case, he claimed that the prison system violated his religious rights as he was a practicing Satanist. Therefore, he claimed that he required sufficient materials in order to carry out certain satanic rites, but he had been denied these by prison officials. In 2017, however, it seems that Daniel LaPlante may have finally come to terms with his actions. While once again appealing for a reduced sentence, he made the statement, "I do not have the words to fully express my profound sorrow, but I am truly sorry for the harm I have caused. From the very essence of who I am, from the depth of my soul, I am sorry." So, I have to wonder if these are the words of a man who truly regrets his actions, or are they the words of a manipulative, deluded monster who is willing to say or do anything to be awarded his freedom. Daniel's appeal was denied, and therefore he will spend the rest of his life in jail with no chance of early release. Daniel's final victim, Andrew Gustafson, passed away in 2014, so he wasn't around to hear of his family's killer being banished to life imprisonment for good. However, upon his deathbed, Andrew Gustafson allegedly claimed, "Don't ever let him out. He should rot in prison." And what little achievement it may be, it seemed that Andrew Gustafson will get his wish. So, tell me what you guys think of this case. I have heard a couple other people cover it, and it absolutely creeps me out that he was living within the walls of that home, peeping out at these little girls. Just, I have to think because he couldn't find anything better to do, or he had become obsessed with Tina and she had rejected him. But can you imagine those two little girls going into Tina's room and finding this man in their mom's dress and in a blonde wig with a hatchet? He very well could have killed them, and poor Frank would have been all alone, and it just makes me extremely sad. But it is incredibly creepy to me that he lived within the walls of their home for weeks without discovery. I kind of had like a similar incident. So before, well, it's kind of I don't know if I'd say it's similar. Okay. I am a generally suspicious person even before I started a true crime channel. And before I lived in this house, I had my own apartment, and it was just me and Lucy. And one day I came home and I was like, boy, I don't think I left that there. And I just kind of brushed, it was like a cup and it was in the sink upside down. And I never leave dishes in the sink. I always put them in the dish drainer. So I was like, oh, I don't remember doing that. And truthfully, I don't drink out of cups much at home. So it was just very odd. And a couple days later, I came home and my bedroom door was shut. And I never did that because Lucy likes to lay on my bed when I'm gone. And I was like, what is, I started to think maybe I was losing it. So my stomach is grumbling again. And then I realized that my brother, the one that has since passed away, was coming to my apartment during the day and hanging out because he didn't want to be at my mom's house. Oh, I'm sorry, that's so embarrassing. He didn't want to be at my mom's house anymore, and he was taking my key off of the key rack and I lived 3 blocks away, and just staying there while I was at work. And that made me absolutely furious. It's such a violation of privacy to know that someone has been in your home without your knowledge. And he just helped himself to stuff, and I don't know, it made me really, really angry. It was one of the last conversations I had with him, actually, which I don't like, but so anyway, do you guys think that this case is creepier than the guy with the mannequins and the bodies in the backyard, or is it just a different kind of creepy? I want to thank you so much for joining me here on my channel for another true videos that I have been able to pre-film, which has not